Hey guys, welcome to Fearless Mods. This is Biff, and we are finally getting to work on the bumper for this Nissan Titan, the rear bumper. If you've been watching the series of us rebuilding this Nissan Titan and refreshing it back to OEM flare from some 19 years ago, then you've seen us repaint the entire truck. But if you go back to the beginning, one of the first things we did was remove the bumpers and everything to get ready for that. We did repaint the front bumper and got it body colored, but we never got to this rear bumper because it has issues. So what we did was we took this bumper and we did a lot of rust treatment. You can see we got areas where the rust has eaten all the way through on the side and the rear. So we took this thing just like we did the front bumper and we treated all of this rust back here. First we wire wheeled it, then we tried to convert it, and you can see where we've just got, this is right here, this is just the chrome plating on the outside. There's no metal left. So the plan here is to get a little more aggressive on this and try to take it down a little bit with the flap disc, and then see if we can try to fiberglass this in from this side with a covering on the other side, and then that will allow us to then go ahead and bodywork the outside and get this thing ready for body colored paint. There aren't many of these bumpers that even look this good from the outside, and so we want to try to save this thing because they are rare and few and far between. So let's go ahead and get on it and see if we can make this thing look fresh and new. Now that we are deaf, blind, and have lungs full of rust, let's go ahead and clean this thing up. So like I said, and what you might see here, if I haven't already shown you, is when we were using the crud cutter to spray all this down. It's water-based, but it reacts with the metal. And you can see some of the areas where I had the stuff that pooled while it sat there for a long time. And I can tell you, the stuff does something because it ate away the surface of the concrete here and left these spots here where the smooth surface is gone and we're down to some of the aggregate rock there. So there's definitely some kind of reaction that goes on with this stuff. And it is supposed to neutralize the rust and actually convert it. I don't know how much good metal we have here, but we did try to hit it as much as we could. And now we've just, we wire wheeled it, now we've flap disced it just to get the loose rust off of it. We didn't get rid of the rust. And that's good because our next step before we paint it is just gonna be rust treatment. And we want to have rust to treat. We'll see how it works. We'll clean this up, we'll hit it with some rust treatment, let that turn black, then fiberglass, and then maybe a coat of paint to just kind of like protect it all when it's done. I'm just gonna hit it with some carbon choke cleaner here and then wipe it off. All right, when we last left you, we were going through these cans and then we weren't using them up. And you can see there's still nothing coming out of it. So we're gonna don some protective gear and see if we can revive this thing. I'm gonna use welding gloves in case this thing decides to come apart in my hand. 100 PSI on the regulator. So let's see if we can add some air pressure to this thing. Hard to see if anything went in there or not, but let's give it a try. Oh, we got some spurts. Let's try it again. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of mist out of there. It's not very much. Let's see if it's enough to coat us. Yeah. We're going to call that a success because we did use some of our can. Didn't have to go spend $13 to use this much. And it's coated. So let's see if this thing dries up and turns black when it reacts with that rust and treats it. Light rust to a paintable surface, that's what we're going for. We're supposed to let this set for 24 hours before we paint it, but we're not painting it just yet. We just want it to dry enough where we can get some fiberglass strand in there to cover up these areas and reinforce where the metal is gone. All right, so because it's kind of a cool, rainy, humid day, I just wanted to accelerate this a little bit. Figured it's best probably to blow the heat onto the backside to heat up the metal to speed up the drying process as opposed to blowing directly on the rust inhibitor itself. So we can feel some heat in here. We'll let this stuff continue to dry off. That should help speed it up a little bit. One thing you'll have to tell me while you're watching this in fast motion is whether or not this stuff's turning black. All the places that I had bare metal, those are now rust. I'm just gonna hit these rusty areas with a little bit of a wire brush. All right, this stuff has not been used in a while, so let's see if it's any good. Okay, we've got the second layer on there. I can feel that it is warm to the touch, so we know we're getting good catalyzation. It's doing what it's supposed to do, and we have got all three of these things patched up. Okay, so we have got this thing fiberglassed. I'm applying a little more heat here just to try to bake in anything else that might remain. It has sat overnight. It's nice and solid. I've pulled the tape off in these areas and you can see that we're looking good. Pretty good. So next thing we need to do is get some paint on the back side of this. And I think what I'm gonna do is just take this outside and spray some of that black epoxy primer back there. It is direct to metal, so our rust treatment did good enough. Going back and looking at the footage, it did turn it a darker color, so I think for the most part it has done what it's supposed to do. And anywhere where we have bare metal, this stuff is a direct to metal anyways, so I think we're gonna be good to go and just help put a really good epoxy coating on the back of this to protect it long term. Okay, I hear thunder over there. Rain is on the way. So we're gonna try to get this quickly coated. I'm going to wax and grease remove it just so that I don't have any of my fingerprints on here that wouldn't allow it to stick. And then we'll get out here with the epoxy primer. And with that blast of thunder and increasing rain, I'm gonna carry this inside. We're gonna call it done. And now it's raining, so that's about as close as you can get to completing a job in the rain. I did bring it inside and I did hit it with the heat gun just a little bit to try to dry some of the droplets. Luckily they weren't as bad as that. So let's let this dry up and we should be done with treating the backside of this bumper. So I've put some of that crud cutter into these caps and stuck all the hardware for the bumpers into them. And you can see the crud floated to the top and the bubbling action going on. After 24 hours, if not even, of setting this stuff, there was a pretty gross film on here. I started around with this to get to it, but look at how these things are looking. That is almost completely clean. It's water-based, so it doesn't hurt to touch it. Look at that. I can't recommend this stuff enough. If only we could have submerged the whole bumper. Who knows what we would have ended up with. Because you can see after another 24 hours, this layer of stuff has formed on here. But these babies should be looking just about perfect. Oh yeah, these are, we'll rinse these babies off and they're gonna be ready for some self-etching primer and then paint. Once again, rain is on the way. So the goal is to get these components behind the bumper outside, scuff them off, get them rust treated, and then go ahead and get a coat of spray paint on them. We're gonna go ahead and paint it with this matte black Rust-Oleum lacquer. I said enamel, but lacquer. Same thing we did on the rest of the frame. And then this will be ready to assemble into the bumper. All right, so now that we've got this thing done on the backside, it's time to start cleaning up this front side. And the bubbliness of the underlying metal from the rust that pancaked off the inside of this structure is discernible out here. You can feel it. This is pretty thick, heavy, and all rust, because that is the metal from the bumper that used to exist right there. So even though we've got it covered and we've got that chrome plating backed with fiberglass now, we do need to work this down so that we can body work it down to a nice smooth surface. Same thing on the side and anywhere else where we have imperfections, and then we can just go to scuffing the entire thing. Okay, so we have gotten all of the loose chrome that was on the outside of this thing. We've got it all removed. So we did that with both the chisel and the grinding wheel to get rid of all that. Once we got it ground down to where we know that we are touching the metal underneath and that the chrome isn't going to peel up underneath our paint, we ground the edges down and then added some more fiberglass to the outside to kind of fill in some of those divots that we ground away. This is still going to require some sanding and body work, but we're going to let this dry up and then we'll tackle that. Okay guys, it has been a rough week and a half. Flew out of the country for a week, immediately came back and flew to Colorado the next day. So my clock was all out of whack. After a weekend there, drove 2 days back in a U-Haul, and somewhere along the way I picked up COVID. So the last 10 days have been trying to recover from that. And I say I'm at about 80%. I haven't touched this in far too long, and I want to get the epoxy primer laid down so it has time to dry, so that I can sand it before we put the silver base coat on it. So I'm going to mask up so that I don't breathe in all these sanding fumes. We're going to lay down some more body filler. I was a little aggressive on the sanding in some areas, and I feel some contour from where the chrome meets the Bondo, and I want to kind of round that out a little bit more so that it's not such an abrupt transition. Not sure how good I'll be at it, but we'll give it a shot and do some sanding, and by the end of this day I plan to have this thing primered black. Let's get to it. Okay, so got the 100 grit and the 400 grit, and our edges and surface all feel perfect on these. We are going to take the high fill primer and just throw a little bit on there, get that covered up, and maybe a little wet sand just to see how it looks, and then we'll be ready to go with our epoxy primer.
Existing specification to install electronic distributor has to replace them and other mounts, or hopefully
Apparently we've got some 600 that is worthy of wet sanding, so that's what we're going to wrap around our block here and sand with. Okay, and with that, we are bumper body work complete. All right, so it's a little bit breezy out here, and because I don't want the black primer blowing over onto the white Trans Am, we're
We're gonna come into this cesspool of a trash can area with just a little bit of protection from the wind. When the camera battery died, this turned into an absolute train wreck. So my gun kept dripping all over. As you can see, it was coming out of the rim here. I didn't have it seated on there properly. So I took it off, reseated it, and then twisting it on, I snapped off one of these guys here. Well, that's not good because I just let the rest of it run down my gun. So I quickly sprayed what I could out of the rest of that can. Sprayed slash splashed and dripped. But the good news is we got a good coating over the entire thing. Those dots will dry and we'll sand those out once this epoxy coat hardens, and it will harden up nice and hard. So it's direct to metal, it's going to do the trick. But I'm going to go clean this up, and we've got about half of what we just used still available. Okay, we don't have much. The drips are still drying, and I put too much of the activator in there. So let's see how this works. We're gonna call that good. That was an adventure that only a person coming out of COVID should have to endure. And that's probably why it all happened, because I'm probably not 100% clear. The areas that we body worked look perfect. You can see the end right here where we did our big repair of the rust hole, as well as the other one on this end. Everything looks fantastic. These drips do not look fantastic. This baby feels like about 150 degrees. It's hot. It was just sitting out there in the sun, just soaking it in, which is good, because that means that it's baking on there. These drips will dry. We got 2 good coats on it. We will sand off the drip high spots. We were gonna sand this anyway to make sure it has a good smooth surface for the paint to adhere to. But that's it. The bumper repair is done. We now have a black bumper. And before you know it, this baby's gonna be silver, put back together and adorning the back of this awesome silver Nissan Titan. Okay guys, we are back at it. It's been a couple weeks, a little family road trip, week and a half of COVID like I told you, and we are healthy and back at it. So this thing has had plenty of time to cure, and it looks really good, really good. The only exception being the drips from where that paint can screwed up on me. And so we got to take care of those drips right now. The goal over the next few days is to have this ready for paint, have the truck panels that need to be repainted ready for paint, and to paint them, and then start assembling everything. So that's the goal. Should be done this week. Fingers crossed. All right, so in tackling this, I got a couple options here. I've got a couple of these different tungsten carbide denibbing tools. I've got the Shark Bite that you saw us use previously, and then I've also got this little square guy right here. Probably give this one a try, see how we do here. But plan is to come across here and see if we can just kind of scrape some of these off a little bit. Okay, there we go. That is one of the bigger drips right there. And that took probably a minute or so to get. We got a lot more to go, so this is gonna take some time. Luckily, they're not all that big, but there are still some other big drips. So I'm gonna keep at all these drips and get this thing smoothed out. All right, so this thing's working pretty good. I feel like I'm probably cutting the crap out of my thumb, and it is a lot of tedious work, and if you start to rush it, you're gonna gouge it in. You gotta keep this thing really flat, pretty much just laying it on the string to keep it about that flat. The hard part is when you come around the curves, because you do have to tilt it in to get around the curves. The outside curves have been a challenge, but they've been doable. But this inside curve right here is pretty rough. And we had a big old drip right there. Just getting this thing to go around that curve without digging in is hard.
I probably should have switched to the shark tooth a little bit earlier on that, because the curves on this allowed me to get in there and just kind of carve out that big heavy drip. But we did get down to the metal a little bit here. Not a problem. We will throw a little primer on that. Other than that, this whole half is done. Now we're on to the second half. Okay, so we've got all of the nubs all shaved off. You can see how much better it looks. And now when we sand it, this will be nice and smooth and ready for paint. Looking pretty good. Couple of areas where we got just a little bit of metal showing through, so I'll hit those with some self-etching primer. Now all I gotta do is sand these puppies up to get them ready. All right, now that this bumper is done and feels smooth as a baby's bottom, it is time to do some final sanding on the truck. We got a fender there that needs to be resprayed, touched up, and then clear coated. We got our door here with the burn, and then we got all our burns here on this side of the bed. That side of the bed has one burn also. So those are 4 panels we need to repaint. All right, the time has come to finally get this truck right. We know where our burns are. We got the one here. We've added a couple in some areas that we will also hit when we do our spray. We've got our burn here. We sanded through the scratch down to the silver, so there's no scratch left. Sanding burn there. Lots of burns here, and maybe just a spot right here. But the main part that is going to require a burn there from sanding. There might be a couple burns here, but this panel here, all along here, up here, down here, and then maybe a little bit in here was the worst offender of all. I did get my self-etching primer on the bumper, and I just scuffed it with some 400 Scotch-Brite. So we will get all this stuff wiped down, wax and grease remove these 4 panels on the truck, as well as our bumper and the other items on here that we have to paint, the fuel cap and these 2 marker lights or license plate lights. It will be time to mix some silver. This one I still have the fast activating reducer for, and we are definitely above 65 degrees in here. We're about 75 in here. We'll keep everything going. That might mean some dust, but we'll deal with that afterwards. And then we will get this paint laid down, probably about 3 base coats that I'm going to spray on here, plus maybe a mist coat for the metal flake. When it comes to our clear coat, I went from the fast activator to a medium activator, which is good from 65 to 85 degrees, and we're right in the sweet spot in the middle of that. So hopefully we'll have some better results with it this time, but I'm really excited to get this bumper added to it and really be completely done, because it's the only thing that hasn't gone silver yet, and the repair looks great. I can't wait to see the finished product. We're gonna go ahead and get the second coat on all these parts. Okay, that is 3 coats on everything. This stuff is all looking fantastic. It might be time to just get a little bit of a mist coat of the metal flake on all these areas we've been painting. I have started getting lighter and lighter as I've gone to spread that out.
So it's looking really good. I'm thinking it's gonna look really good. Okay, so we are done with the silver base coat and got all of our metallics misted all over the place. Everything looks good. It is time to go with clear coat, but before we do that, we now got to reveal our black panel again here, wax and grease remove and tack cloth it so it's ready to receive the clear. And for this, I'm going to do the pressures a little bit more like we did when we did the trim pieces, because they turned out really good on the clear coat. Okay, so we are in fact at 26 psi. The fan is wide open. I've got the flow to about 2 turns open. My air adjustment valve is wide open, and I'm using this regulator to keep me at 26. I have the compressor at about 60. When I had it down at 40, it couldn't give me enough pressure at the end of this hose. So at 60, it's putting me right where I need to be when I'm spraying. Good, big fan pattern, a lot of fine droplets, and not overly soaked. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to let this flash for 15 minutes and then come back and mix probably another 2 cans, but I think we're looking good. We have good atomization, but it might be too much atomization without enough fluid. So now we just want to try to get with a little more flow here, about 2.5 turns, to try to get a little more product going on, but we have to be careful that we don't go so slow that we put runs all over this thing. This looks a lot better. I need to go outside and breathe some actual oxygen. I'm gonna let this stuff flash off, give it about maybe a half hour, and then I'll come in here and crack some doors and get some air sucking back through here. It's been about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and for about 15 minutes now I've had the doors open, the attic fan on, drawn all the fog out of here. We'll come back tomorrow morning and start pulling some of the tape and seeing how everything looks in the daylight once it's cured and we can rub our hands over it. That was a short night. Coffee in hand. First looks, literally, I didn't look up until I turned the camera on. Wow, bumper feels perfect. Super smooth orange peel, looks like factory on this, definitely factory on the fender. We'll get you around and take a look here. I'm gonna open some doors and let the air circulate. There we go, she is unbagged, and man, I gotta tell you, I think I'm gonna take it. I don't think I'm gonna do anything except take care of some of those little runs. That minor one right there is the only one on this side. This feels smooth. We're gonna chalk that up as a win, and I'm finally gonna get to start to put this door together. Got the bumper all loosely assembled. I say loosely because I don't want to over tighten the bolts yet until I get it on the truck and make sure everything's where it needs to be before I tighten everything down. But look at this thing. It looks fantastic from the back. Everything looks nice and new and refreshed. Got all our wires routed, everything plugged in. Our new cleaned up, rust-free bolts painted and installed. And the front, absolutely phenomenal. This thing looks absolutely incredible. The finish is perfect, and that is a body colored bumper ready to go on the truck. Okay, let's get you caught up. First, got my ears lowered, shaved. Second, paint is done.
turned out fantastic. Doors assembled, trim, everything. Side caps are on the bed. Taillights are reinstalled, and headlights are reinstalled, as is the grille. This time everything is done permanently because that should be the last time that we have to do this. Let's get this thing installed on the back of the truck. All right, first off, I will tell you, it is very hot outside. We're gonna do this without opening this garage door. Let's get this bumper fit up for the first test fit and see how it looks. That's unnerving when you got painted surfaces coming that close in contact with one another, and you've got a big, heavy, unwieldy bumper. Thankfully, we have a hitch there to rest it on. Now we can go ahead and get some more other bolts under there, get that thing secured up. All right, guys, so that is it. The exterior of the truck is done. We've got this beautiful body matched bumper on the back of the truck. This looks absolutely phenomenal, and I couldn't be more pleased with our respray and how everything turned out. So before I wrap this episode, I do just want to say there's a couple things that are missing. I've still got a couple fender liners right here. Those are for the fronts. There's a reason for that. And the running boards are dirty as hell. Actually, the entire truck is dirty and needs a wash. So I'll be getting out of here and cleaning it up. But that's because we have some fun boxes over here that you might have seen laying around. And that's right, it is some rough country supplies that we are going to be utilizing on this truck. And to see what that is and how it makes this truck reach its final transformation stage of the rebuild, you're gonna have to stay tuned and watch us in the next episode. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you sticking with us on the Nissan Titan, and we're just glad about 6 months down the road to finally be at a completion point. It's been a long road with lots of travel, lots of health issues, weather interruptions, and just life, but we got her done, and it looks fantastic. It'll look even better when we get it cleaned up. So, hey guys, thanks for watching. Please remember to reach down and like and subscribe and keep coming back so you don't miss out on the content when we start getting that rough country equipment installed on this truck to take it to the next level. But we'll catch you again real soon. You guys take care.